Just think, you're flying on a plane, the plane of life. You've overcame addiction, you're doing good with PTSD, stress, and anxiety. Up in the front row pops up a terrorist. He hijacks the plane, it crashes, you're done. That terrorist that popped up, that's your amygdala. It's hijacking your desire and taking control, making you want to fall back and relapse. What can prevent that is the frontal cortex. And in this video, I'm going to talk about how strengthening the frontal cortex and shrinking the amygdala will prevent a relapse of addiction. Okay, today's video builds upon video number 10, where I spoke of how addiction is very bad for PTSD, stress, and anxiety, and how going to addictive substances to help numb the pain is like throwing gasoline on a lit flame. So now what I want to talk about today, let's say you are already addicted to something or you have overcame your addiction, and now you have the tough job of ensuring that there is not a relapse and that you fall back in. And I'm going to talk about what can help you with that. And so a lot of times when you're talking to a therapist and they're providing you with these ideas and techniques that you can use, a lot of times you don't realize that they'll work until you use them. You feel a lot like Ralph Macchio with Mr. Miyagi, the wax on, wax off. And you don't understand why he's having you do that or what it means until, you're at the tournament and Johnny sweeps the leg, like this on my shirt, sweeps the leg, and then you realize the wax on, wax off paid off and you win, go home with the trophy. But what I find helps better is to understand the science and biology behind these therapeutic techniques so you can understand them, and it works. It helps your mind better understand why they're having you do what you do if you know how the brain works. And knowing how the brain works is also going to help you stage off the addiction. And I'm going to tell you exactly how the amygdala could cause you to relapse and what you can do to prevent it. Starting first about what causes an addiction. Dopamine is released to motivate us to achieve what we need to survive. It motivates us to go get food, water, things like that. So when you do drugs, you do anything over and over, you are now tricking your brain to think you need that. And that's what drugs will do. They will make your mind think that you have to have that. And not only the way your mind is tricking you to make you think that you need that is that as you are consuming that substance or doing whatever that is you're addicted to, if it's a behavior, your senses are absorbing all the stimuli around you. So if you're watching a movie, if you're listening to music while you're like smoking weed or doing some type of drug, you always got drunk or high when you watch Dazed and Confused. There's a certain smell. All of the senses that are absorbing that stimuli are telling the brain, hey, when I sense that stimuli in the future, I need to create a motivation and desire to have that. That's how the addiction happens. Is there a song you hear, and System of a Down or something, and there's that one song, and the thought that comes to your head is cruising around, drinking beer, or taking drugs or whatever, because that song was something that you had listened to a lot while you were engaging in that addictive behavior. So now that when you hear that song, that hijacker is firing up. That hijacker wants to crash your plane, and he is wanting that drug. That smell, if you've quit smoking and someone lights up a cigarette and you're, that feeling, the sense and everything, the amygdala is fired up and it's ready to hijack. That's what makes it so hard. The multiple amount of senses, stimuli that had entered your brain when you were addicted, that triggers the dopamine to think, hey, I need that stuff. I need it to survive. And that's what makes addiction so hard. You think, I'm going to stay away from everywhere where there's alcohol so I can stay away from alcohol. But it wasn't so much the locations of alcohol. It's a song that reminds you, makes you want to drink. It's things like that. I feel like I'm sitting down for a barbecue or I'm out fishing. I've got to have a beer or something, All of that stimuli, that creates the addiction. But now there's hope. There is hope When that amygdala stands up in the front row ready to hijack your plane, you can stop that joker. Now let me tell you why. So as I started about in the beginning, how you go to therapy and therapists are like, you got to do this, it'll be good for you. Mr. Miyagi style, wax on, wax off. I don't know how it's going to help, but then it helps when I try it. It works better if someone tells me why it helps. So let me tell you how mindfulness, which I have a whole video on mindfulness. Why does mindfulness help with addiction? So just like we have stuff in place to prevent terrorists from hijacking planes, it's a pain even to get to the airport. There are preventive measures that you can put in place to prevent the amygdala from hijacking your plane. Mindfulness is the technique. There is proven fact through analysis of the brain that routine daily mindfulness grows the frontal cortex, gives it more power and strength, and shrinks the amygdala, reduces the power and strength of the amygdala. Now, when you grow more of the frontal cortex, you have more strength and ability to do something called emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to process the information that's coming into your head, take control of that information, and say, this is what this information means. This is what I want to do with my life. I'm not going to allow this information to just flow into the amygdala to go into the fight or flight sequence and give me that desire to relapse and fall back into that addictive behavior. Now, if you have ever been addicted to anything, mindfully way that you can have a higher guarantee that you're not going to relapse. Tornado season, hurricane season, it's approaching. I've got my generator ready. I'm starting to stock up on extra potable water, washing dishes and all that. I'm not going to wait to get that. You never know when your tornado of your life is going to pass through. You've overcome PTSD. You've overcame your addictions. Life is going good. You feel, I'm strong, I can handle this. Then what happens? A spouse dies. Your house burns down. Something terrible happens. You thought you were the strongest person ever, but you did not practice mindfulness and build up your strength because you used to smoke weed. You used to do some drugs, and part of that is still in there. And now when you are vulnerable and weak at your weakest moment, and that stimuli that was there during your addictive behavior arrives, and you are purely focusing on the death or whatever that trial is, you have a higher chance of relapsing. And if you want to avoid this, shrink that amygdala through mindfulness, meditation, and you will be stronger to overcome. Those thoughts that pop in your head, they're never going to go away. It's like if you're an adult and you find your child with marijuana and you're just having a stressful day and you take the marijuana from her and then that smell hits your nose and then you're just like, oh, and you're having a stressful day and then boom, you lack the emotional intelligence and you just relapsed. You never know. You're like, I'm staying from the weed away from the rest of my life. I'm strong. But if you don't put some stuff in place to prevent that, mindfulness, shrink down that terrorist that's going to attack your plane and hijack it. You never know when you're going to run into that, and then you're going to fall and wish I would have, implemented protective measures.